This is episode number 49 at the BS Machine. Welcome, guys. I am your host, Tommy Kendi, and we are almost like episode 50. That's cool, isn't it? I reckon it's cool because that means 50 fucking episodes of the BS Machine. And then before we know it, we're going to be at 100. Imagine how many cool guests and cool episodes there will be by the time we get to episode 100. But I'm celebrating almost being at episode 50. So we are coming at you from the lounge room, the study of Tommy Kendi's place in Elwood, Victoria. But the more I look at my listeners, it's like the BS Machine is growing with listeners all around the world. I saw that the other day where I had like 25 listens from Uganda. I'm going, how cool is that? Like there's people in Uganda and Brazil and where else did I see that was weird? Like Czechoslovakia and all these cool places. I'm like, how the fuck is that happening where people from all around the world are sort of tuning into the BS Machine? I don't know how you guys are finding me, but I'm so blessed and so thankful. But still, the majority of my listeners are from Australia and from the US. So for all of you listening around the world, I welcome you to this episode at the BS Machine, the bullshit machine, where we call things for what they are and we look at things in a really, I guess, earthy way. And what we're looking at on this episode is the complexities of human interaction. And if you want to know how I came about that, the way I came about that was I was just talking to one of my best mates just before I pushed record. And we were just talking about basically how human beings interact and, you know, especially in relationships and how human beings interact in a work environment and just with each other. And there's so many complexities when it comes to interacting with other human beings. And the reason that there's so many complexities around it is that all of us have a different way of viewing the world. All of us have a different perception of how we view the world. And the reason for that is because all of us come from different lineages. I don't know if that's the right word, but that's just the word that sort of came out. But we all come from different childhoods. We all come from different countries. We come from different cultures, different religions. And so, you know, it's almost impossible for you to have an interaction with someone without any complexities at all or any challenges. And, you know, for me personally, I really find it quite challenging when I see the world in a certain way and I see certain situations in a certain way, but then I come up against another person that sees them in a totally different way. And for me, because of the way that I look at the world and I perceive the world, I'm just going, how the fuck does this person actually think that what they're saying is that they're actually being true or that they think that they're being right about it? And then taking a step back, I had almost like a bit of an aha moment around it because it's like you really do have to understand that everyone comes from a different understanding, the way that they were with their father, with their mother, with their families. And so, and everyone has a different, what's the word? Everyone has a different propeller or a different intention that drives them forward. And so when you have a different intention or a different driver, you're going to put your focus into the things that match those intentions and match those drivers. However, one of the things that I'm being super aware of and super careful of is that even though I might look at the world in a different way to others, I still come back to that initial driver and intention of what I actually want for myself. Because ultimately that's what it all comes back to, isn't it? It's like, what is it that you really want for yourself and what is it that is absolutely truthful and authentic for you? And you have to stay true to that, because if you don't, then it's like you're giving part of yourself away in order to meet someone else's view of the world or meet someone else's conditions, and then that will actually end up being a really, or it could be a resentful experience down the track, especially in relationships. Whether it's a personal relationship where it's a loving relationship, a friendship, or it's a work relationship. But what I believe you really have to be careful of is to know whether your intention or your focus is coming from your truth, or whether it's coming from a dysfunctional or egoic place. And what a lot of us don't realize, because a lot of us haven't done haven't done inner work, and a lot of us have, but a lot of us haven't done the inner work. And when you haven't done the inner work, it's hard to know and please understand that I'm not judging people that don't do inner work or haven't done inner work. It's not a judgmental thing at all. It's more about just an understanding of where someone is at, and being able to meet them where they're at. Because even if someone hasn't done the work and they're not interested in doing the work, you can still step into your power and make sure that you stand strong in your truth and in your true authentic nature, and you stand strong in your heart, in what your soul, what you actually want. And then it's not up to you whether that person comes to the party or not. It's up to them. And if they don't, that's totally fine. But as I said before, what we have to be really mindful of is that when we're going into certain interactions with other human beings, we have to know that we're coming from a place of truth. And for me, my place of truth is love and connection. And when I'm in love and connection, I know that I'm such a fucking powerful human being. When I'm in my power, when I'm being truthful to myself, I know that I can move mountains. I can change people's lives. I can quite confidently navigate around any challenge, any complexities. And so when it comes to human interaction, we have to understand and we have to know before, or actually, usually you should, I mean, most of our interactions are going to be quite lovely. 95% of our interactions are going to be quite enjoyable, because, I'm just assuming that you would usually speak to people that you choose to speak to. You would speak to certain individuals that you choose to be in your life. But then there's going to be this other 5 or 10%, probably not 10%, I reckon 5%, where you're going to come up against interactions with other human beings that are going to trigger the fuck out of you, and it's going to trigger the fuck out of them. And you end up in this situation where you might be looking at things, the same thing, but from different ideals, different perceptions, and different assumptions of how you believe the world should be. And this is where you have to be super, super careful, because if you're not aware of the fact that you're being in your ego and in your dysfunction, what will happen is you will probably you will most likely end up in a unfavorable position that you will it's like you'll end up in an unfavorable position that you will realize down the track was something that maybe you should have been things to open to, or maybe looking at the world from a different perspective, and so I believe that all these things, when you end up in these interactions that don't really suit well for you, then if you shy away from it and you walk away from it, you're actually denying yourself a fucking lesson. Because what you're doing is by denying yourself the lesson and denying yourself the opportunity to go into the fear factor, or to go into or to go into an opportunity, because everything is either an opportunity or it's something. Oh, I think I said that wrong. No, I didn't say it wrong, but I just don't know what the opposite of opportunity is. But everything is an opportunity. So you can either walk into it going, you know what, I don't want this opportunity, and I'm gonna let it go, because every single communication and interaction you come across it's showing up for you, because it's something that has to be healed within you. It's a part of you that has to be healed within you. And and I'm just talking about my own experiences in these situations, that I know that if I deny myself the opportunity of going deeper into the fear and going deeper into the breakdown of communication, then I know that if I deny myself that down the track, I'm going to have to land in the same situation, and I will have to go through the same thing again. And if you're listening to this and you're resonating with what I'm saying, then what you'll find is that with this human interaction, whoever it's with, you have to come back to yourself, and you have to almost look at it like, okay, this is showing up for me, and there's a reason why this is showing up for me. And then if you look back over the last months or years or even decades of your life, you will see certain patterns that keep showing up, and you end up getting yourself to the same situation, the same place, just with a different person involved. And the reason it's still showing up for you, and you will find a really specific pattern, especially when it comes to human interaction. If it keeps showing up and you see that it keeps showing up and you're like, why does this always happen to me? You will find that the only way that you're going to heal that part of you or not come up against that certain situation again is if you go deeper into it and you go through it. So all the things that you think that mean something to you in it, or all the things that you want to hold on to and make sure that you're like, no, I'm fucking right, you most likely are not coming from a place of your heart. Because if you tune back in, and you know what, I won't say tune back in because it's a whatever word. If you refocus onto what you actually want, if you refocus back into what you actually want to create, that is most likely not going to front up for you in the way that you believe that it should. Yeah, and I've talked about this on my other podcasts before, and we have to listen to that it's the things that we want and our end results and our visions, they're not going to come into our lives the way that we expect them to come up. And when there's expectations on how things have to be, especially in human interaction, then you're most likely going to be very fucking disappointed, because the way that life gives us what we want is usually in a way of how we didn't see. You have to have the blinkers off in order to accept all the goodness that comes in for us. And this is a really important point that you have to understand, because there's a lot of people in this world that are very black and white. And I actually love people that are black and white, because they just look at things in a really obvious way. And it's just like, yeah, it's obvious. It's like, let's just do this, and then we get the end result. But the problem is that, or the challenge is that when you look at things in a really black and white perspective, then what will happen with you is that you're forgetting about all the magic that could be, all the other opportunities that could be sitting there for you to look at when it comes to this interaction with other people. So where I'm going with this is that when you are when you are finding yourself in a challenge around communication or interaction with other human beings, what I would really implore you to do, I'm pretty sure that's a word, explore. I know it's explore, implore. I'm pretty sure implore is a word, and if it's not, you know what I mean. What I would ask you to do, or challenge you to do, is to bring yourself back to what's truly important. And if you ask yourself what's truly important, you will find that you will most likely get a different answer than what you're experiencing. And there's a real thing around that, isn't there? And so when you actually realize what it is that you want, what it is that and you bring your focus back onto that, then what will unfold for you is you will get a different perspective on how the other person is looking at the world, and you'll get a different perspective on how the other options that are out there for you to get exactly what you want. And this is the clencher, guys. This is the real clencher, that when you are open to the other options that you haven't seen before and you take the blinkers off, then there's so many more ways that what you want can come in for you. And it hasn't, and you haven't limited down to this tiny little, one way street or one way route of the way that things can come in for you, because you're just fucking limiting yourself. So then, so that when you bring this back into, into your truth, it gets fucking exciting, and things get exciting when you can open yourself up. When you really can open yourself up, that's when things get really exciting, because you're going to start to feel vulnerable, you're going to start to feel fear, and you're going to start to feel like you're not sure or you're uncertain because you haven't done these things in this way before. It's going to seem super sort of imbalanced for you, but that's good, because the thing that is going to rebalance you is the connection into what it is that you truly want to create for yourself, whether it's a relationship, a work scenario, or whatever. And then the other part to it is these complexities that happen within the interaction between human beings. Is if we imagine it like there's a tree, like let's say there's a tree that's coming out of its roots, right? It's coming out of the earth, and it's this big fuck off tree. And as the tree gets bigger and bigger, there's certain branches that start to veer off. And then off the branches, there's other little branches. And then from those branches come other twigs, and then from those twigs start to come flowers or whatever else. So if we use that as an opportunity around humans and the complexities in our interactions are that as we're talking, and as we're communicating and interacting with other human beings, the tree is starting to grow out of its root. And then as we're talking and as we're interacting around certain situations, there's going to be different branches that go off. So the different branches represent different opportunities of where that conversation can go. And I was actually listening to one of my other mates' podcasts. It's actually a really good podcast if you're into like learning about business and whatnot. There's a podcast called Liznick. It's one of my buddies. His name's Nick Bell. Super successful dude, absolute legend. But he's got this podcast called Liznick, and he had this guy on called Chris Voss. I think it's Chris Voss or Craig Voss, and I'm pretty sure it's Chris Voss. And he was like a FBI FBI negotiator. So he would go into bank robberies and all that type of stuff, and he'd be the guy that's negotiating. So he's like the master when it comes to negotiations. And for him, I learned so much from this guy when Nick was interviewing him. You should have listened to the interview. It's Chris Voss with Liznick, the Liznick podcast. It's LISNIC. And basically what he said is when things break down in communication and negotiation, what you have to do is you've got to bring yourself into the situation or into the negotiation, and whatever you can do, you can't. You've got to meet the person where they are and give them things that they actually want, in order for them to see that you guys are on the same side and you want the same things. And obviously, it's impossible if you don't want the same things. because if you don't want the same things, then it's going to be a breakdown and it's done, you know. But if you do realize that you want the same things, then you have to find ways of communicating in a way where you align yourself with the same things that you actually want. And then there's this other part to the podcast with Chris Voss, which is really cool, where if there is a total breakdown and neither party is, you know, communications have stopped and interactions have stopped, you can say these words in, and if you're listening and you're in sales, this is an epic thing. You can basically say to the other party, once communications have broken down, have you given up on whatever it is that interaction is about? So let's say if it's a relationship and the relationship's broken down, you could literally write to them, have you given up on our relationship, or have you given up on us? And it forces the other person to sort of come to the party and give their you know, show them where they are with it, show them where they're at with the whole situation, you know. But that was just a little side little branch that I took you down, but just, you know, maybe that'll help you, maybe it won't. But in terms of taking it back to where we were before with this tree and the little branches, so the complexities sit within all these different branches and all these different ways that the scenario could work out. But that's the coolest thing, isn't it? Is that when we take our focus off of being totally black and white, and we take our focus off things that they have to be a certain way for us to feel comfortable, then don't you agree that we're just limiting ourselves? And don't you agree that if you were to look at the situation and even play with the idea and look at it with, you know, taking the blinkers off and looking at it from a different perspective and almost stepping into the other person's shoes, and if you believe that the other person wants the same things that you do, then wouldn't it make sense for you to, even if it scares you, even if you don't believe, wouldn't it fucking make sense for you to come to the party if you know that both of them want the same things, or both of you want the same things? Wouldn't it just fucking make sense to come to the party with all your fears, all your vulnerabilities, and step in? And maybe it's a sense of compromise. Maybe it's a sense of just going, you know what, I'm going to give this a go. And then if that happens, maybe that scares the fuck out of you. But what have you got to lose? If you've been experiencing the same patterns over and over again, you got nothing to fucking lose. If you know that what you're going for is what you want. And when you have nothing to lose, you are always going to be in your truth, in your heart. Because when you've got nothing to lose, you're basically going for what you want without any fucking conditions, any roadblocks. You're like, right, I want this, and I'm going to do whatever I can, and I'm going to give it all I've got. And then you're going to start to heal and pretty much wipe out all your past fucked up patterns. And a really good place to do this is in human interaction, in human communication. And then the other thing, guys, is you have to come from a place of love. I mean, you have to come from you can't go into an interaction, you know, holding all your cards tied to your chest, because if you don't show your cards, it's impossible for the other person to give you, you're creating a situation where it's fucking unattainable for the other person to come to the party with you. So you have to show your fucking cards. And at the same point, you've got to sit in your power. And the way you sit in your power, which is what I said to you before, is you have to put the focus back onto what you actually want. And once you know what you want, and you know that that's your fucking truth, then you step in and you move forward in that way. And this is super important stuff, guys. And this is the real stuff. And as I've been talking, you most likely had some sort of like maybe an aha moment, or you've had some sort of like, oh my God, this fucking makes sense. And maybe you're not going to get it right every time. I certainly don't. But I know that when I come to the party, when I come into these interactions, knowing what my focus is and knowing that the other person wants the same thing as I do, when that happens for me, fucking magic unfolds every time, and it's so fucking cool. It's so powerful, and oh guys, I'm just gonna tell you right now, it is pissing down with rain outside my window, and it is so beautiful. It is so beautiful. I've just got this sense of absolute. Um, I've just got this sense of gratitude. I'm just watching the rain now, and it is absolutely stunning. And that sort of reminds me. It's true, isn't it? That with all this stuff that we're doing, it's like what we're doing is we're washing away our past bullshit, And I don't know if you can hear the rain. It's absolutely. Can you hear that? Oh, it's bucketing down, and what that shows me. I'm always so open to, what things are showing me. But it's just washing away of past patterns or past behaviors, and the thing that you will find is that you will, if you're open enough to look at things from a different perspective, and if you go into things expecting nothing and being open to magic, and you go into things with the intention of being in your truth, but at the same point or experiencing and allowing the other person to be in their truth, then you are going to have an epic outcome that is perfect for you, and it's perfect for them. And that, I believe, is a really good representation of the complexities of human interaction. Just remember that tree, all the things that, all these different branches and where everything goes. It's powerful shit, guys. And so, really have a look at your own patterns, your own behaviors in human interaction. And so, especially with, I think relationships are such good places where this stuff comes up. And I really urge you to, I think that's the word, how before I said implore? I think there's another word that sounds something like that, but I think it's urge. But I really urge you to dive into these things and dive into your patterns and look, like, have the courage to look into these behaviors and patterns and interactions that are constantly coming up for you, because you will, you can take a step back, look into it. And for me, the best way I find that this works is through writing shit down and jotting stuff down into my journal, because I know that through writing I can be so truthful and understanding with myself, and there's no one sort of judging. So thank you guys again for listening to the BS Machine. I'm here as your host, Tommy Kendi, your host, and I will see you next week. Lots of love, guys, and please share this podcast, whether you're listening on YouTube, whether you are on the Spotify or Apple Podcast or whatever, and please leave a review. Why wouldn't you? I mean, it just helps this stuff move on. But you know what? Even if you didn't, I'm still going to be doing these podcasts. Love you guys. Have an epic day, and I will see you, or squeeze you, or fucking talk at you next week. Hasta la vista, you legends. Bam.